Hello and welcome to the second show of Women's Thought on Sport. You're here with Katie and Niamh. This is the show that brings you all the sporting action that hasn't hit the headlines, and we particularly focus on women. How are you doing today, Niamh?
I'm doing very well on this lovely Sunday morning, praying for less technical difficulties this week. But Katie, why not give the listeners a bit of a summary of what we'll be talking about today?
Yeah, we're hoping we can hear through our headphones
We're hoping we can hear.
So today we've got a great show lined up for you. We will be talking today about the gap in media coverage on sport, and specifically why women's sport still receives so much less airtime than men. So we've been asking Leeds University students about their views on women's sport. We've got an interview with female footballer Vicky Palin, and we're talking today about whether the Olympic legacy is really working. But first, we have Paolo Nutini for you. This is Pencil Full of Lead.
One, two, three, four. For my bed and a pillow for my head. I got a pencil full of lead and some water for my throat. I got buttons for my coat and sails on my boat. So much more than I needed before. I got money in the meter and a turbo heater. Oh, and now it's getting on the road, so it's getting sweeter. I got legs on my chairs and a head full of hair. Holding a pan and some shoes in my feet. I got a shelf full of books and most of my teeth. Few pairs of socks and a door with a lock. I got food in my belly and a license for my telly, and nothing's gonna bring me down. I got a nice guitar and tires in my car. I got most of the memes and scripts for the scenes. I'm out and about, so I'm in with a shout. I got a favourite chat, but better than that. Food in my belly and a license for my telly, and nothing's gonna bring me down. I'm gonna blow that high, man. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Oh, boys, the best of all. I've got my baby, oh best of all, I've got my baby. She's mighty fine and says she's all mine, and nothing's gonna bring me down. No! Oh, best of all, I've got my baby. I've got my baby. She's mighty fine and says she's all mine, and nothing's gonna bring me down. Oh, she's mighty fine and says she's all mine, and nothing's gonna bring me down. She's mighty fine and says she's all mine, and nothing's gonna bring me down.
Welcome back to Women's Thought on Sport on Leeds Student Radio. You're with Katie and Niamh.
And also, if you do have any strong views or any views at all about what we'll be discussing today, don't forget to tweet us at ThisIsLSR on Twitter. We'd love to hear what you think and some of your opinions. So first up today, obviously the whole show is about media coverage on sport. And Katie and I picked up on a video ran by Sky Sports News over the weekend about the disparity in coverage. And even though women's sport is evolving in quality and popularity, the coverage, unfortunately, is still in the dark ages. You know, even though some sports such as the Women's Super League was aired on the BBC in football this year, and the FA Cup is always shown on primetime ITV, there still seems to be a hell of a lot more interest in the male sports. So Katie, I mean, you've got some stats for us. What are they saying?
Yeah, so in a survey carried out by Sky Sports in October 2013, they followed all media outlets to see whether men and women were being given equal coverage or what percent of the coverage they were being given. And their results were quite shocking, actually. They found out that in television coverage, women received 10% of the sports coverage. In radio, they received 5%. And in newspapers, a mere 2%. What do you think about that, Niamh? It's pretty crazy.
I think it is crazy. I mean, only a mere 2%. A lot of people are arguing that do the readers of these newspapers really want to hear about women's sport? And a lot of people are saying, well, there just isn't enough interest at the moment to justify more coverage because people just they're not interested at the moment to read it, hence the minimal coverage they get. But I mean, would you ever watch a women's football match if it was on TV?
Yeah, I've watched many. I'm really interested in it, as we're going to hear Vicky say later on in the show. She was, when I spoke to her, explaining to me that actually women's and men's football is almost an entirely different game in itself. Men's is very fast, it's very aggressive, and it's very exciting. But women's is very skillful. They haven't got the speed to match the men, but it's a very skilled game, and you could class them as different things. So of course I would watch it, and it's very exciting to see players being able to play at that level. Another interesting thing I thought on the video that I'd like to ask you about was the issue of genderising sports. So this video was talking about the fact that with women's sport we always genderise. So we would say now is the Women's World Cup final. And I thought it would be interesting, if we did it the other way round, if we said now it's the men's football highlights. It shows that there's actually an alternative to just a men's game. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree on that stage, because athletes who are men, and especially at the Olympics, at the Olympics it's the men's 100 metres final, and then it's the females 100 metres final. But in the interviews or in the introductions to those events, they're female athletes, and then they're athletes if you're talking about a male and a female comparatively. So I do think it's about time that there is, a men's football match and a women's football match, although they're both football, are completely different games.
Yeah.
So I think that should be respected. But myself and Katie went out and asked a few students of Leeds the exact same question. Would you watch a women's football match, and do you think women's football deserves more coverage? So let's have a listen to what they've said.
Do you watch any women's sports or follow them on TV?
I guess when the Olympics are on, I watch the athletics.
I watch gymnastics and diving and occasionally swimming and athletics as well.
Would you ever watch a women's football match?
Well, I don't really watch football, but if it was on, yeah, why not?
I don't really watch men's football, so no.
Are there any women's sports you wouldn't watch?
Probably wouldn't watch women's football. I just don't think it's very interesting. It's just a bit boring to watch, a bit slow-paced.
Are there any women's sports you follow?
Cheerleading.
And can you watch them on TV? Are they widely available?
No, you can watch cheerleading on the internet, but for a £60 subscription fee.
Do you think that women's sport deserves more coverage?
Yeah, we only ever hear about men's football, or men's sport in general. I think it should have an equal amount of coverage as it does for the men's.
So welcome back to Women's Thought on Sport. You're here still with Katie and Niamh. Just to build onto that vox pop there, I mean, many people said, or many of the females we interviewed said that they wouldn't really watch a women's football match, but neither do they watch men's football, which I thought was interesting. Katie, what did you think of some of the responses?
I see your point, perhaps football isn't the main issue. I think myself, perhaps we put too much emphasis on football in itself. It's such a massive game in the UK, the men's league. It's what everyone talks about. And perhaps I'm wondering what's happening here is that we have so much emphasis on the men's game that thus when we talk about women's sport, we expect football to be the front line. And actually, you can see in a lot of women's sports, there's a huge amount of popularity for much more niche sports. So you've got things like tennis, swimming, gymnastics, rowing, where actually the women's game is considered just as exciting. And perhaps it's football that we need to address rather than women's sport in general. I don't know what you think about that.
I do agree. I mean, if anyone remembers Nicole Cook, gold medal winning cyclist from London 2012, she actually said that she's calling for more equal coverage of women's sport overall. She said that the BBC have 1,000 hours of women's sport broadcast every year, and if you think just how much sport they broadcast over the whole year, that's such a minimal amount, and it should be spread equally across all sports. So I think it's a really interesting point.
Yeah, I'd say my big question is, why is it different for the Olympics? In the Olympics, they have 50% coverage, and it's a shame, but also, to me, quite baffling that doesn't then carry on throughout the year, because the Olympics is incredible. And, we heard people talking on the video there that they would watch women's sport in the Olympics, but at no other point.
Yeah.
And I just really want to know why. It doesn't change throughout the year. If not, it gets more exciting. It's building into the next Olympics. It's all about the journey you go on with the athletes. So I find that quite interesting. Another thing I just wanted to briefly bring up with you before we listen to Vicky's interview is the idea that some people in the video are saying there's not a lot available for women out there. That's why they don't watch women's sport. But to me, that perhaps implies there's a vicious circle going on at the moment, that people do not think there's a lot going on because there is no media coverage for it, and that's why we need more. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people may not know about women's sport, even the fact it exists, and that is purely because there is no coverage or no promotion of it. And then these women's sports can't progress because without the coverage and without the popularity, they can't gain sponsorship, they can't gain more popularity, they can't gain maybe the chance of turning professional. So I think with that small bit of coverage that they could gain, something like the women's netball now, which is shown on Eurosport, I think a lot, and especially diving is shown a lot on Eurosport, the sponsorship and the popularity of those sports are just growing and growing because of that little coverage on those shows. So I just think that the more coverage, the more knowledge and the more equality.
So if you are now sick of hearing us banging on about how much we love women and love sport, we've got a really cool thing coming up now. We interviewed Vicky Palin, who is a Leeds University student, and we spoke to her about her experience playing as a female athlete. So take a listen to this. Hi, this is Katie Smith reporting for Leeds Student Radio. I'm here with Vicky Palin, who is a current University of Leeds student studying medicine. She's also on the women's football first team and used to play for Wolves women football team before she joined university. So has a lot of experience in this field. So we're going to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind, about football. So just talk to us about how you got into football and how long you've been playing.
I first started playing probably because I've got an older brother, and so when he was playing outside I'd go and kind of join in. And then I started playing for my first team when I was 7 or 8. It was just a local team, girls team, and I played for them for a few years, and then I went to a boys team for a year to see what it was like, and then I went back to the girls team, and then it slowly just built up my love for the game, and I obviously enjoy playing it, and it went from there really. Yeah.
Cool. And what was it like playing on the boys team? How old were you when you did that?
I think I was 9 or 10. I think I was still under 10, so it was very early on, and it's just because it's obviously like a higher standard because there's lots of boys, and I just went because it was me and a friend, and we thought we'd try it out, and it was fine. I mean, I don't really remember it that much, but it was good, and I remember making friends with all the lads, and it's interesting because I think it's after a certain age you're not actually allowed to play with boys anymore, so it got to that point where I wasn't allowed. Mm-hmm.
And were you aware as you were growing up and getting better at football that there were a lack of girls playing? Did it ever bother you?
I wouldn't say it bothered me, but it is obvious. I mean, like you'd play at lunchtime and there was like me and my one friend, and then it was just all boys. But yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, once you get into your girls' teams, obviously there's not a lot of girls in like my town who play football, but there's enough to make a team, or quite a few teams, and so we can get a league going and things. So yeah, so it's good.
That sounds great. And I just want to talk about sort of the kind of stereotypical ideas people have of boys and girls and the sports they should be playing at younger age. Were you ever kind of told or implied by anyone that football wasn't for girls at a young age?
I was never really told that directly. I mean, some of the boys were always judgmental of you. Like, you'd go to a game and you wouldn't know the boys, and you always pick your teams, and so you're always picked last because you're the girl. But it was so hilarious then when you went on to play, they actually realised you were good. And they were like, oh wow, okay, yeah, we can pass to her. So yeah, it's you get used to it, I suppose.
And tell me about your experience of playing for Wolves Women. So how did you get into it, and what were the games like? What was the training like?
Well, I started playing for the Wolves under-18s, and then I slowly progressed from the under-18s to the reserves to the women's team. We train Tuesdays and Thursdays for 2 hours each time, and then matches on a Sunday. And we're in the Northern Premier League, which is, so it has teams from all over the north. So there's even Newcastle. So some Sundays we have to travel 4 hours to get to a game, and that was intense. I mean, it's always hard to do that when you're trying to balance school and things as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and the coaches were really good to me and allowed you to progress through the club, which was great. And I got loads of experience playing for the first team because it's such a high level. and at my age, like, it's quite good to be playing at that level. So
yeah, and we were just saying before this interview that we'd probably equate the Wolves women team with that of the men's League One level.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of commitment you were giving. But tell me about the team in terms of professional athletes. Are any of the people on the first team in Wolves women being paid full-time athletes?
Definitely not. None of us are paid to play. We actually have to pay ourselves to play. The only women footballers who are professional are the ones who play in the very top league, the Women's Super League. And even then, not all of the women in that league are paid full-time. It's only a couple of the clubs, like Liverpool and Man City, who are paid to play. And
what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's fair, unfair?
It's hard, because when you compare it to the men's football, and they're getting what we would earn in a year, in a week, and it's crazy, but it's the way it is. And the women's game is getting more and more popular. I mean, a few years ago, the women weren't getting paid at all to play, and with the introduction of this new Women's Super League, it's women who are now professional, which is a big step. It was a big step from not getting paid at all to actually making a living off it. So it's coming, it's getting there, and it probably never ever be the same level as the men's, because let's face it, like, it's billions of pounds, but it is getting there. It's more and more money is getting pumped into it.
Yeah, it's exciting, really exciting. Yeah. So now we're going to move on to talk a bit about media coverage. So do you feel, as a female sportswoman, that women's football and just women's sport in general deserves more media coverage?
I definitely think it should. I mean, there's been certain cases where England's women games are not on the television. BBC have been quite good. They put it on BBC Three and channels like that. But when you think about the attention an England men's game gets, it's not the same. In terms of other sports, I mean, Wimbledon is especially good. I mean, I would watch the men and the women, like, equally, and they get paid the same prize money and everything at Wimbledon. And definitely other sports, it probably is more equal, but that's partly just because men's football is so blown up. So.
Yeah. I mean, can you give a reason perhaps why you think people are less excited to watch women's football and are less interested in tuning into their games on TV?
It is hard, because it's hard to get people to realise these things are happening. If there's no coverage, then people don't know about it. And then how do you get more coverage? I mean, it is hard. And so there's, if you think about the women's game as well, like, it's not the same. I mean, like, men's football, it's so much faster and things like that. But the way I see it is it's a completely different game. And you've got to look at it that way and forget what you know about men's football and just watch it and realise that they are actually really skillful and really fast and things like that.
What do you think we could do as a society, as a country, as a sporting world to encourage more media coverage, encourage more participation?
I think anything helps, in all honesty. Like, if the game's shown on BBC One and some young girls happen to see it, they may get into football, they may be the stars of the future. And when that happens, then they can pave their own way and make it more popular. There could be more encouragement for young girls. I mean, I was never encouraged through school to play for the boys' team or just go outside of school to get a girls' team. Like, I had to do that myself. Like, I nagged my parents, I had to do it. So you've got to be really into it to go for it and get into that. It is definitely getting better. I know at the secondary school I was at, there was a big programme of girls' football, and we had teams throughout the years and good training, and because everyone wanted to be a part of it, it made it so much better because there's awareness about it. Whereas you see other schools and there isn't even a girls' team. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it would be better if just everyone plugged it, basically.
Yeah. And just to briefly touch on the Olympics from London 2012, their legacy has inspired a generation. As a footballer, you know, at your games from last season, could you notice a difference? Do you think that they are inspiring a generation of new athletes to come forward and try things like football?
I think it has made a difference. I mean, just the awareness of sport in general from the Olympics rose so much. And I know we get supporters at our games. This year they've just introduced season tickets you can buy for the women, and it's a fantastic opportunity for people to get involved, definitely. And I think the legacy has worked. I mean, I went to watch the women's football final at the Olympics, and it definitely inspired me, even though I'm involved in it. Like, it made me want to try harder, get further, and things like that. So, yeah, I think it worked.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. That was Vicky Palin on Leeds Student Radio. And welcome back to Leeds Student Radio. You're with Katie and Niamh on Women's Thought on Sport. So we've just heard Vicky Palin talking about her sporting career so far and all the exciting things she's got up to, but also looking at disparity in media coverage and what that means for women's sport in general. So let's talk about what Vicky said. It was interesting, wasn't it, Niamh?
I thought it was really interesting, especially when you started talking about the Olympic legacy. I think that's such a big thing that many athletes, I mean, namely, you've got Jessica Ennis, you've got Catherine Granger, Elise Christie and Lizzie Arnold, especially from the Winter Olympics. I mean, they were huge names, got a lot of sponsorship, a lot of airtime because of their gold medal winning or their sort of controversial performances. So I think that even though it can be short-lived, the Olympic legacy, well, that doesn't really make it a legacy if it's short-lived, does it? But the Olympics and events can bring such good coverage for women. It's a shame that sometimes it is short-lived.
Yeah, and particularly you were saying about key figures there. You know, maybe the issue is it's brought good things to few and not great things to the many. I don't know what you'd say about that. I mean, I could definitely myself see big increases in participation in general after the Olympics. You know, I'm a rower myself, and at my rowing club we had loads of people starting. I've heard from similar people, you know, tennis, there was a massive boom after the Andy Murray gold, rugby and cricket, and even, you know, as I say, cricket, not even Olympic sports, saw massive levels of participation rise, but it's the people that stick with it. That's what we need. Inspire a Generation is not just about getting fit, it's about finding the new big female Jessica Ennis's, basically.
I agree. I think especially when you're talking about the increase in participation, I know especially my dad and all his friends, they're never off their bikes now ever since people like Bradley Wiggins, Mark Cavendish, the gold rush from Chris Hoy at the Olympics, but there's still that little disparity between those huge names such as Joanna Rousel, Laura Trott, Danny King, Lizzie Armistead. You can name a few, but will people be able to name them this far away from the Olympics? So 2 years now to Rio, of course they'll reappear and they'll be in the limelight hugely when it comes to something like Rio, but 2 years after London, I mean, I wonder how many names you could name of the female gold medal winnings apart from the likes of Ennis.
Yeah,
and, you know,
I mean, could you name a gold medalist in the shooting?
I couldn't, unfortunately. Could you?
I know he was called the farmer's son, but I can't remember his actual name. But anyway, so big question to finish on then. What can we do to improve media coverage, or the alternative, do we need to leave it as it is? Is there just
Can
no
anything
need
be
for
done? I think something can be done. I think especially this year with the BBC Women's Super League coverage, and especially the FA Women's Cup has always been broadcast, but women's netball is getting a lot more airtime now. I know people like Tim Lovejoy, he's a huge sports personality. He's always talking about women's netball now, maybe because his better half is a netball player, but that's becoming a lot more known in the media industry. I don't really know how to phrase it, but I do think that there are small breakthroughs.
I was going to say, Sky Sports have really committed recently to promoting women's sport in the media. So you've got a weekly show now, Sports Women, where they interview people like Catherine Granger, Anna Watkins. They had Joe Pavey on the other week, who can actually discuss what it's like being a female athlete. And I think that's great to get that out there. But still, main channels like BBC, it's rare that you see women when you don't see men.
And I think not just actual participators in sport, but the likes of Gabby Logan, Sue Barker, Denise Lewis, Paula Radcliffe has now joined a lot of the coverage of this. I think people like Hazel Irvine. I think we need some new fresh blood. We're relying on these old characters. Someone like Denise Lewis, great pundit, but she's there all the time. We're getting One Opinion. We've got her, Colin Jackson, doing pretty much all the athletics coverage. It would be nice to see some girls from the netball team, from the hockey team, from the diving. Being able to talk about sport and being able to publicise it really across the media, because as we, touching on what we said before, people are saying there's nothing available for women. There is so much available. There's so much
it's
out
just
there.
It's not being put out there in the media, and that's, I think, is what we're trying to say, isn't it, Niamh? They should just get us on there.
Yeah, I think they should. I think we'd be great.
But I think it's important to say, the reason we started this radio show is because we both are passionately involved in sport ourselves, but also are very determined to get more coverage for women in sport, because it's so exciting and there's so much on offer, and it's just really not getting the coverage.
At the same time, we probably are guilty of mainly watching the men's rugby match, the men's football match. But is that because that's the only thing that's easily accessible?
So Niamh, what do you think about perhaps having more education in schools about women in sport, or pushing for more female teams, as Vicky said in her interview?
I think there should be more education, and that sport is for all. There shouldn't be any stereotype or any division into this sport it's just for girls and this sport is just for boys.
And what do you think, just briefly, about the potential for having laws put in place to sort out this disparity we keep talking about in media coverage? I'm just going to get an example in here. In America, they've got a law called Title IX, which is across education in America, and it states that girls and boys must have equal opportunity and equal funding within education. So thus, in their universities, that covers sport, and that's done great things. Do you think that's something we could have in the UK if we put in laws like Title IX?
I think it definitely, if it were to be put in place, it would be extremely effective. But I think we sort of go back to the issue of, with coverage especially, is there the demand for this to be shown? Is there the demand for the coverage? And once you've got the demand, once people realise that these sports, which may not be on TV all the time, are just as good, then you'll get the demand for the coverage. Until that point, I think laws like Title IX, yes, they will have an effect, but I don't think that will have a ripple down effect onto coverage until people realise just how good those sportsmen and women are.
Definitely. Interesting stuff. Well, I think Niamh has the sports personality of the week for you.
Yes, just to finish this week's show, we have our weekly sports personality linking into the football theme. It is South African ladies footballer Portia Modise, who scored twice last week in the Africans Women's Championship to take her total tally of international goals to a whopping 100. We salute you.
Well, thank you very much for listening. That was Niamh and Katie, and this is Women's Thought on Sport on Leeds Student Radio. See you next week.